am Jenny Bitner, ordained spiritual minister and business leader of over 20 years. I have chased the titles, the money, the recognition, only to realize that the real pursuit is in experiencing mind miracles every day. And this podcast is here to show you how. This is real life, these are real stories, and these are real shifts from fear to love. So let's dive in, shall we? All right. I'm going to go ahead and read our first question for today. Okay, so here's our question. I felt called to step away from content creation after building a seven-figure business for lawyers. Now I'm expanding into a broader range of professionals with a more spiritual approach and an international positioning. I'm choosing a less conventional path, and interestingly, I feel drawn to advertising, something I was strongly against just a few months ago. What's your perspective on building a business primarily through ads? I'm genuinely excited about this next chapter. Thank you. Okay, what a great question, because it really touches on something in A Course in Miracles we learn around it's not what we are doing it, but who we are listening to while we do it. That is the key. And you'll hear me say this over and over again because it is definitely something that I want to become part of your automatic thinking patterns are these two sides to the coin. In life, every single human is operating always out of one or two spaces of context. So the context to which you are always expressing in is either going to be through the context of love or the context of fear. And through the lens or the context of love, you know that you are channeling in the energy, the words, hearing the voice of God and Holy Spirit. That is how you are expressing through the context of love. When we are expressing through the context of fear or guilt or shame or irritation, this is being expressed through the ego. And so we only ever have those two contexts. However, we have access to a billion different ways of form. Form is the actual expression being used, right? So form, for example, could be if I want to teach concepts from A Course in Miracles, I can do that through a podcast. I can do that through writing an ebook. I could do that through going and speaking on stages. I could do that through one-on-one work. I could do that through group work. I could do that through a million different ways, right? Those are all forms of delivering the context of love, of being able to return to love. Like those are all forms of doing it. So there's so many ways that we can do something, so many different forms of being able to do something. And what we want to remember that forms themselves are genuinely neutral. We are more interested in the purpose that we give those forms. Because, for example, with this example, ads in and of themselves, ads are neutral. They're neutral. They're just ads, right? Content creation, it's a form. Ads are a form. Social media is a form. A webinar is a form. A podcast is a form. So the deeper question is really, what is the purpose that I'm using this for? And the ego may look at running ads to manipulate or persuade or compete or prove our worth, whereas the Holy Spirit would use that same form of running ads to extend value and to create connection, maybe, or to reach people who are seeking support, to facilitate. So you see how we can take something that is very neutral in its form, and the ego can have one agenda with it, and the Holy Spirit would use it and put it to its highest value use. So the same tool itself can serve different purposes depending on where the mindset is coming from, where we're actually using it. So the filter through the mind that we're using means everything. So I did notice in the message that you were describing using ads as a form, or, from a place, I could say, where in the past it meant something different for you, right? So maybe in the past it felt that it wasn't in alignment with the work that you were doing, or it felt like running ads could have been a form of desperation. It could have been a form of force. Whereas right now you're feeling this openness, you're feeling curiosity, you're feeling excitement. And that's what we want to pay attention to. Because sometimes as we grow more spiritually and we discover what we previously rejected wasn't inherently wrong. It's just that it wasn't aligned with us at that stage in the journey. And so, as our perception changes and we really work on having that miracle mindset and we work on experiencing mind miracles every single day, which again is just a perception, it's a pivot from fear to love. That is a miracle. And we're entitled to have a million of them every single day. Right. And so, as we get really good at building out those mind miracles and that miracle mindset, our perception inherently starts to change, and our relationship with certain tools can change as well. So a question that you actually may want to ask yourself instead would be like, am I being called toward ads right now because I believe it will finally make me successful, safe, worthy, whatever that might be? Or is the actual sacral hit you're getting when you ask yourself this question the most aligned one, right? So you can ask yourself instead, am I being called towards running ads because this actually feels like a useful channel to which I can extend what I've been given? This actually feels like a very useful channel because those two energies are so different, right? So that first question tends to carry a lot of pressure, like this has to work. Whereas the second carries this willingness of like, let's see how this can be used for service. So what happens is, as we're calling out to Holy Spirit to really help guide us along this path, remembering God is boss. He's setting all of this up for us for in the greatest of ways. And the guidance that you will be given becomes so much more clear when we can release our judgment about the actual forms that are put in front of us. Because again, we can seek out a form that is inherently neutral and we can give it meaning that the ego attaches to it. And then that can feel like a lot of pressure, a lot of force. It can create resistance in our body. Or we can ask ourselves, is it possible that this form can be used lovingly, honestly, in alignment with my purpose? And if the answer is yes, then there may like there's no conflict, right? So we're not really asking, are running ads spiritual or unspiritual, because they're neutral. They're just a form. We want to ask, what mind and what mindset am I using to experience this form right now? Because that frequency will still be attached to it when I go to deliver the thing. And maybe this is also, there may be a deeper lesson here where we can start to release an old identity, the version of yourself that believed there was a right way to build business. And now we have this willingness and guidance to show up in unexpected forms. And it's weird. It's like, oh gosh, that was unexpected. I didn't think I was going to all of a sudden want to start doing this when, I always say this too to clients, let's not speak in absolutes, right? I would never do that. I would never, because you have no idea what God will put in front of you for your next steps until it's there. And then if we have created these absolutes in our life and in our business, what happens is the ego pops up and says, oh boy, you always said you would never. Now we've got fear of judgment, fear of ridicule, fear of people coming out of the woodworks being like, you hypocrite, you always said. So it's just best we don't speak in absolutes anyways, Because when you speak in an absolute, you're speaking in a way where you, the human, and your ego is saying, yeah, yeah, no, I would never do this. But we don't know what God will do for us and how God will show up and the lens to which he wants us to see through things. So I'll leave this reflection for this question before we hop into our second question for this episode, is that remembering that Holy Spirit is not limited to the channels that he'll use to reach people. So remember, it's not the vehicle that matters, it's the purpose that that vehicle serves. And so if the the extension of love and the intention of using it is truth, and the extension through and context through which you're using it is love and service, then even paid ads can become a means of joining together. It can become the vehicle that bridges the gap between billions of people and the service that you're offering, when that service you're offering is in pure alignment with your purpose. Okay? All right. We are going to move to our second and final question of this episode. She says, thank you for your first couple episodes. I've been looking for how I'm serving and spreading love in my current circumstances, and it's helping. Oh, yay. So glad to hear that. All right, now more on attachment and expectations. We hear all day long that we need to release expectations and be unattached from the outcome. When you can do that, you'll receive what you've been manifesting. But I have a deep awareness that there is still a sneaky part of my motivation and narrative that is very attached. Like every time I do a good job at letting go of expectations and being unattached, and I've listened to God and made moves based on the higher mind, there's this sneaky part that's like, great, we've done it. Wait, but where's the thing I manifested? I did it, right? So where is it? It's like the little kid that got straight A's, cleaned her room, was nice to her siblings, and actually enjoyed doing it and feels grateful for everything in her life, but is confused when her parents don't give the reward she'd been promised. It's like I'm still trying to earn the things I've been manifesting. I know I don't need to earn it, but there's some part of me that must still believe it. What's your process for moving through this? Okay. What a profound question, because I know the amount of people that are likely going to hear this question and think to themselves, "Okay, whoa, you are talking to me. Thank you for asking this because I didn't realize how often I'm feeling the same way." Now, you're obviously already seeing something that a lot of people miss. So I want to point out this because a lot of people will miss this part of it, which is the ego is very clever. The ego is very, very clever. So it will often take spiritual principles like surrender and trust and detachment, and then it turns them into a new strategy for getting what it wants. So I really want to acknowledge the level of self-awareness in your question, because the fact that you're noticing the sneaky part, it's actually a sign of awakening, not failure, but awakening. Right? You're really awakening to the sound, to the voice, to the messages of your ego, of that lower mind. And when you're describing, your question and you're formatting your question like this, it kind of reminds me of something that I learned through A Course in Miracles, which is that the ego loves a bargain. Loves a bargain. Right? And so it may say something and make you believe, if you do those right spiritual practices, then I should get that outcome. If if I just trust enough and I surrender enough and I forgive enough and I let go enough, then life should reward me. Because the ego will essentially turn spirituality into a transaction. And what I love about your message and your question is that I can see that you're really catching yourself in the middle of that transaction. And the whole image around the child who did everything right and is waiting for that promised reward. That's just showing that underneath the attachment to the manifestation, there's actually something coming up that's asking for healing as well. So there's like this deeper rooted, if I'm good enough, maybe I'll finally receive. If I do everything right, maybe I'll finally be chosen. If I perform well, maybe I'll finally feel safe. And this is the core belief that the ego is actually built on. The core belief is that love and abundance and peace and worthiness must be earned. Whereas the Holy Spirit teaches something very different. The Holy Spirit is going to come through you and speak through you and let you know that you do not earn what is already yours. You do not earn God's love. You do not earn your worth. You do not earn your inheritance. You just simply remember it. Hmm, let that sink in. Right? So when that disappointed voice arises and says, but where's the thing I've been manifesting? Instead of trying to get rid of it, I would invite you to become curious about it. So, can you lovingly meet that part of yourself and ask, what do I think this manifestation will finally prove about me? What am I hoping to feel once it arrives? What am I believing that I don't already have? Because often the manifestation itself, the thing, isn't actually the deepest desire. Because the deepest desire is usually a feeling, security, it's freedom, it's validation, it's peace, it's belonging or significance or support or love. Like the deeper desire isn't just that thing you're manifesting, because as soon as you, quote unquote, get it in its material form, there's going to be something else. So there is a longing, a feeling, a deeper feeling that you really are after. And so Holy Spirit will gently lead you to discovering that all of those feelings are actually available in your mind before they appear in the physical form. And I've said this on a previous podcast, and I'll say it again. But surrender. Surrender, we aren't letting go so that we can receive. We are actually surrendering and letting go because we already have received. We already have it. Because we have it in our mind right now. It's already in the mind. And it's working to go from the mind, which is really in the quantum, if you will, right? It's an energy into its material form. So it's not the bargain we're looking for. I'm surrendering and I'm letting go so I can receive. That's a bargain. But it's a remembrance. I am letting go. I am surrendering because I already have it. It's a remembrance that we are not separate from everything we desire, the love, the safety, the worth, the significance, all of that. Because you already have that. You already have all of that. So the ego is convincing you that you are separate from it, which means you will continue to chase it, chase it, chase it, chase it, chase it, chase it. And if you're always chasing, you're losing your connection to your highest power. So when we stop using surrender as a strategy to get something, the surrender itself becomes genuine. And it's not that we no longer desire things, but our peace is not dependent upon them making their way from our mind into material, physical form. That's not where our peace is dependent on anymore. So when you notice that thought come up, where is it? I've done everything right. Just pause and say, there's the part of me that still believes love and receiving must be earned. Then place no judgment on it. Just bring it to the Holy Spirit and say the line, help me see this differently. God, handing this to you. Where's the clients? Where's the money? Where's the offers? Where's the abundance of people just walking in and asking for what I have to offer? Simply say, Spirit, I've caught myself again. I believe I don't already have everything inside of me. Help me see this different. Because the clients, the money, the offers, the raising of the hands, the external validation, there's a deeper meaning. If God dropped 10 clients in my inbox today, I signed all of them, there would still be a deeper feeling that did not get fulfilled. And that's the point. So we want to be able to see what actual feeling is operating out of the ego's thought of, if I just had this, I would be set. No, because then the lack and the separation would just show up in a different form. So we want to bring these feelings to the light so we can purify them, we can dissolve them. We can ask God to when we're lifting things up, we're asking God to purify that feeling for us. And we know that it's a heavy feeling, so we're asking to see it differently, to be able to receive that miracle. Because the goal here isn't to become perfectly unattached to everything. It's to uncover and heal the part of the mind that believes its worth is tied to certain outcomes. And the truth is, and the exciting part is that healing is already beginning to happen simply because you're willing to see it. The fact that you're willing to ask this question means healing is already happening. The unwind, the disentanglement, all of that begins to happen when we have a willingness to open our eyes to what's actually happening. Being like, okay, we got something going on here. And I'm going to bring this to God. So, in closing, just remember, and maybe this is something that you actually just want to write down and say to yourself or repeat to yourself, but our affirmation for today, I am not waiting for something to arrive. I am learning to recognize that what God has given me cannot be withheld. It cannot be withheld. It is in me, and it is in me internally forever and ever. And it is unshakable, unbreakable, undestroyable, if that's even a word. The form may come in its own time, but my peace and worth are available right now. The form of money may come in its own time, but my peace and worth are available right now. The clients may come in their own time, but my peace and my worthiness are available right now. The big break may come in its own time, but my peace and my worthiness are available right now because I was born with them and they are indestructible. They will always be within me. So allow me to access that part of my mind where I know that truth and the remembrance comes in loud and clear. Mm. What great questions we had today. I absolutely love, love, love answering your questions and bringing God in and helping you see that you already have everything that you need. And I know firsthand and secondhand what being a CEO is like, what being a business owner, a founder, running a business, having a dream, taking that vision, materializing it. I know the challenges that can present itself when we are in that type of journey. And I want you to know that the more that we lean on God as our boss, the more we will be guided in ways that we could never have dreamed of feeling like building a business. So, if this episode spoke to you, it was meant for you. Stay close, subscribe, and I will keep bringing you inside these daily, hourly, minute mind miracles that you are entitled to. I love you. We'll see you on the next podcast.